Thanks for being with us. So, a new report from the Alzheimer's Society of Canada predicts that nearly 1 million people here in Canada will be living with dementia by the year 2030. So, that's more than a 65% increase from the number of us living with dementia in 2020. And it seems that dementia is actually more common in women. So, let's find out more. Dr. Joshua Armstrong is a research scientist with the Alzheimer's Society of Canada. Thank you for your time today, Dr. Armstrong.
Thank you for having me.
So what's going on here? Are these numbers spiking because our population is aging, or is something else at play?
It's partly driven by population aging. We've actually seen a little bit of improvement in the incident rates if you look across ages, but with the large number of people getting into their late 70s and 80s and 90s, that we're going to start seeing the driving up of these numbers.
Okay, and then why or how did we determine that it's more common in women?
Oh, that's known fairly generally across most countries, especially in high-income countries. Women tend to experience higher rates of dementia compared to men.
And is that, again, largely due because women live longer than men?
That's probably the main driver. That's what a lot of people think, but there are other reasons too: hormonal differences in brain structure, differences like societal differences as well. So, but yes, women do live longer, and with age being the highest or strongest risk factor for dementia, that's likely the main driver of the difference.
If this many more Canadians are at risk of developing dementia, how important is early detection? Or maybe you could just give us an idea of what is there an average age that people tend to find out that they may have Alzheimer's?
I haven't looked at those numbers. I can't give you a specific number, but you can develop it early, prior to age 65. But most people develop dementia in their 70s and 80s. And then, finding it early is not going to stop the dementia from progressing, but it might give you better care and better quality of life if you do find it early, get the right services, get the right care. You'll likely have improved overall health.
I got to say, that's a pretty giant number
It
when you
is.
say 1 million Canadians. We talked to someone just a few days ago about, what we think might be something that could help, which was this a new helmet thing where they
Stimulation.
stimulate your brain. Are you starting to see some things, or I don't know that you look for those necessarily in what you do, but some treatments that are promising going into the future?
Really, I think our report really emphasizes the power of risk reductions, of working to improve your overall health to reduce your risk of developing dementia. So there's no magic pill that we have to stop it from happening. But if you do take a number of measures across different domains and try to improve your overall health, that has been shown to lower the risk of dementia. And if we could do that across all Canadians, we'd see a significant difference in the numbers coming out by 2030 and by 2050.
Well, that's very encouraging. So maybe you could tell us what some of those risk reductions, what we could be doing.
Sure, yeah. When the researchers look at risk of dementia, they usually divide the risk factors up into two types of categories: non-modifiable and modifiable risk factors.
Okay.
The non-modifiable ones are the big three are sex at birth. You can't change that. You can't change your genetics, the second one, or you can't really change your age. So you can't really focus on trying to do anything with those three major risk factors. But this non-modifiable risk factor list is growing all the time. The main ones could be things like addressing hypertension, not abusing alcohol, lowering your obesity level, just smoking, get your depression treated, and a number of other ones. Some of these are listed in the report. But by addressing these modifiable risk factors, you can lower your risk of dementia. So there's a bit of a good news story here. We often think of that dementia is unavoidable with aging, but that's not true. If you do improve your overall health, you can lower your risk of developing dementia.
I mean,
I was going to just say my reaction to what you just said, listing those factors, is that's the same thing I've been hearing for the last
everything.
10 years.
Yeah.
I mean, what's new in there?
Well, it's the same thing. One common saying is what's good for the heart is good for the brain. So all these actions, these preventive actions that are good for your heart are also good for your brain. That's one point that we like to make, that we call these modifiable risk factors, but they're only truly modifiable if people have the resources, the understanding, the knowledge, and the support to try to make those changes in their lives.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay.
I mean, I like that it does sound very accessible in so much that, it's about taking better care of yourself in an overall general kind of way. I'm curious about the non-modifiable when you said genetics. Genetics play a very big role in this, don't they? If there's a history of dementia in your family, that means you're quite predisposed.
Not really. For some types of
Okay.
dementia, especially for earlier onset or certain familial Alzheimer's disease, but the vast majority are what might be called sporadic Alzheimer's dementia. So it comes with later age when you develop issues within your brain. It could be Alzheimer's disease pathology, or it could be related to vascular system. So it's not so much genetics. Genetics can increase your risk, but it's definitely not as much of a driver as these other factors.
Now, you mentioned as well, and I'd not necessarily thought I'd heard this before. So if you're dealing with depression, you're saying treating that is also significant here?
Yeah, for sure. If you're dealing with depression in late life, if you have that treated and you're able to get through that, you are definitely lower your risk of dementia.
Okay.
So it's important to work with your family doctor, work with your physician to try to improve your depression if you have that problem.
So given the fact that we know there are these behaviors you can modify that obviously will help you in dealing with this, are you beginning to see or hopeful that you're beginning to see that message is getting through and that those numbers start to go down, not up?
That's kind of what we're hoping with this report, to kind of get this education out there, show that it's not all hopeless. You can adjust your risk.
Mm-hmm.
The responsibility isn't just on the individual. It should also be on our health system, our family physicians, our governments, to try to also encourage healthy living and to provide those supports and resources so they can make that happen. We have, even like I mentioned earlier, we have seen a reduction in age-specific rates around the world, and this has to do with this improving health of older adults.
Okay.
And when you talk about the modifiable risk factors and that big long list, but that most of them are, things that you can kind of control yourself. On the whole, obviously, being treated for depression is a different thing, and accessibility comes into play there. But is it sort of an earlier the better scenario with that, Dr. Armstrong? Like the earlier you can detect any of these risk factors and start dealing with them and actively trying to improve your health, the better your chances?
Oh, for sure, yeah. It should almost be a whole across the whole life course, starting at early age. If we actually look at early age, more education actually lowers your risk of dementia. These risk factors actually start in early life, and you definitely don't want to wait until you've already developed the dementia. The current understanding of Alzheimer's disease is that before you start showing symptoms, you've had changes in your brain for a decade or more before that. So yeah, definitely shouldn't wait. You should start now. I myself am in my early 40s and already thinking about ways where I can reduce my risk of dementia as I get older.
Wow. So here you are in your 40s, you're saying you're already thinking of this. You're not supposed to worry about this till you're 65, so maybe you start by 60. What are you doing differently given the fact that you know these things?
Well, just like we've talked about, more physical activity, so don't live a sedentary lifestyle. I work at my desk doing research, so I try my hardest to try to get out and get more physical exercise. Try not to have too many drinks during the week or on the weekends. Making sure I'm seeing my family doctor to address any sort of issues with my heart or any hypertension I might have.
Okay.
Another factor that we haven't talked about yet today either is this idea of social isolation. It's important to have a social network, whether it's a few friends or lots of friends, depending on your personality. That's also very helpful in terms of reducing your dementia risk.
Fascinating. All right.
Certainly
Dr. Armstrong, thank you very much. Very much appreciate your time today.
Thank you for having me.
You
Cheers.
bet. He's a research scientist with the Alzheimer's Society of Canada. Interesting, kind of threw that in at the end, right? That social isolation part.
Yeah, we've certainly heard that across the
Boy, have
board
we ever.
for older people, how important that is, and now specifically linked to Alzheimer.
Wow.